After the global financial crisis, macroprudential policy has established itself as a powerful tool for policymakers to curb the excesses of the financial cycle. However, the menu of macroprudential policies is wide and varied, and these very different policy measures can have very different effects. To understand these effects, one potential approach is to focus on the effects of a single macroprudential policy measure. This is precisely what we did in a recent paper co-authored with Eeva Kerola and published in the Banking Supervision Policy VPS. By focusing on the effects of a single macroprudential decision, we were able to identify very carefully the timing of the effects and the distributional effects of that specific decision. So when the effects happened and what type of firms were mostly affected. Our selected policy measure was the countercyclical capital buffer and its tightening in Germany that was announced in 2022 and applied in 2023. We use confidential loan level from the European Central Bank to analyze how firm lending by German banks was affected by the announcement and the eventual application of the decision. What we find is quite striking. First, we find that banks reacted immediately after the change in the level of the CCyB was announced. This anticipation effect was in fact stronger than what we find after the CCyB change was finally implemented. In some, lending was decreased and the cost of credit was increased immediately after the change in the level of the CCyB, well in advance of the new level being applied. Second, the effects varied across size of the firms. Small and medium-sized firms were mostly impacted, while large corporations remained unaffected. Compared to the controls, lending to SMEs dropped by 15%, and the cost of credit rose by roughly 0.5% after the new CCyB level was announced. These are clearly very meaningful results in economic terms. Both of these findings, the timing of the effects as well as the distributional dimension of the effects, are crucial considerations for macroprudential authorities in order to make fully informed decisions. These results are also of high policy relevance. This is because, first, macroprudential policy is often announced well in advance of the actual change in regulation taking place. In the case of the countercyclical capital buffer, when it is tightened, the typical lag between the announcement and the application is a full year. Thus, banks have plenty of time to modify their behavior in anticipation of the actual change in the regulation. This is something that is important for policymakers to understand when they are timing their decisions, especially when macroprudential policy is used with the aim of managing the credit cycle. Second, macroprudential policy is not intended to have distributional effects per se, beyond making market participants that are more risky less so. However, some distributional effects can have unintended consequences from the economic point of view. Given that SMEs are known to be more reliant on bank lending and that their growth is restricted when access to credit is constrained, our findings on the distributional effects can also have macroeconomic implications.